Good morning, good morning. We are back with another video on the E36, you guys. Today we are talking seats, specifically Sparcos. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video with your boy Thick Whips. Today we're talking about the Sparco seats in the E36. So for a while now, you guys have seen how I've been kind of taking this car from more of a track focused car to back to like a streetable / weekend track type car. To be honest with you, I don't live anywhere near a track, and the reality of me tracking this car like every weekend is slim to none. At most, I'd probably track it like once a month. But to be honest, I just want to be able to drive the car as much as possible. I want it to be a little more comfortable. I want to go on longer drives. I want to go to the mountains with it. And when you have a car that is just a track car, kind of takes away from the enjoyment of just leisure driving, just cruising in the car. Having a full-blown track car, yes, it is very cool, very raw. You have the cage, everything is stripped, it's super light. Got these bucket seats and these harnesses. It looks really cool. It's definitely a blast to drive a car like that, but I will tell you right now, after a while, when you just want to get in and go for a drive every other day, every day, it tends to be a little bit much, and that's kind of where I found myself. You know, I'm not like a big track racer. I'm gonna try and get out there as much as I can, but for this car in particular, this car is just nice and there's a lot of value in it, and I just don't want it to be like a shell on wheels. Most track cars, they're pretty clapped out because they just get tracked constantly and that's it. If I were to do it all over again and my only intention for this car were to be a track car, I'd put probably zero money into the exterior. I wouldn't do anything to it. I would just drive it and just make sure that it would last on the track, and that's really it. This car, it's beautiful. Let's be honest, it looks really good, and I just love driving this thing like as much as I possibly can. So part of that process has been, you know, putting the interior back together, sourcing things that are newer in the interior, making it a bit more comfortable. You guys saw the kill mat that I did, making it so it's not so loud in the car. And another part of that is replacing the seats that I currently have. So I have the QRT-Rs right now, which are about an $850 seat. And I'm actually technically downgrading to the R100 Sparcos, which are about $330. The R100 seem like solid seats. I looked at enough reviews to know that they're probably what I'm looking for. I was gonna go and get Recaro Sportster CSs, but then again, you're spending a lot of money, and those are all on back order right now. So I figured if worse comes to worse and I put these seats in the car and I really don't like them, I can always return them. We'll see how they compare to the ones that I have now. So here is the QRT-R that I have in there now. And while it feels really great when you're in there, you are very cupped in. It's a little bit small for me. My shoulders are a bit too broad for these side bolster pieces, whatever you call them, these shoulder humps right here. My shoulders are just a little bit too broad, so I can't fully take advantage of this seat. I'm always like kind of pushed out a little bit. But even if I were to get a wider seat, this thing is like millimeters from hitting the door. There really wouldn't be any more room to get a wider seat in this car. The other thing is obviously this is not reclinable, so you're kind of like stuck in the position you're in. And there's many times where I just kind of find myself wanting to move around and just get a more comfortable position. Great for a track setup, but not so great for a street setup. Also, getting in and out is kind of annoying with these side bolsters. Again, makes sense for track, doesn't really for street. So that's kind of why I'm going down this road and taking these out and putting the other ones in. Ugh. So once you are in, it's relatively comfortable, but you're stuck. You're in one spot and you are not moving. You can obviously go back and forth because I have the sliders, but you're pretty much where you're gonna be, and that's it. I've often found myself wanting to recline it back a little bit, just have a little bit more support back there, change up the stance a little bit when I'm driving for longer than an hour. Typically when I'm in these seats, I have about like an hour limit, and then it just becomes a little too much for me. Maybe it's old age, maybe it's a bad back, but after a while, they just tend to be a little bit too stiff and a little too aggressive for my liking, for like a daily drivable car, streetable car. Now, I will say these are very nice seats. Don't get me wrong. For the money, I feel like, and if you are building a car that's more track oriented, these are probably one of the, if not the best seats that you can get for the price. You know, they're under $1,000, they're lightweight, they do the job, they're aggressive, they cup you in really well. You can run your harnesses through them. You can adjust them as far as like bolts. You would have to take it off and, you know, move the bolts up and down if you want the seat to go up and down. And then obviously if you get the sliders, you can move it back and forth. So it is a great seat. I'm not bashing this seat at all. There's a reason I bought the seat in the first place. It just doesn't really make sense for the future of this car in my opinion. I figured I would try out these Sparco R100s first. If I like them, great, we'll keep them. At the very least, this will make for a good comparison video for you guys. And if I don't like them, I return them and maybe go with a more expensive set or something a little bit different. All right, so that should pretty much cover everything in terms of the QRT seat. Like I said, I think it's a great seat. It's just not for my application as of right now. I might just hang on to these and put them in a future build or something like that. I'm not quite sure yet. But today we are gonna pull this out and we're gonna throw in the R100. So we've got a couple of, I believe these are either 15s or 16s. Pop these out, pop the ones out on the inside, pull the whole seat out. We'll move it to the other garage and I'm gonna show you guys how to swap everything over. Also, if you have an E36, I will show you the exact floor mounts that we're using and the rails and all that stuff. And then I will go ahead and assemble the new one and throw it into the car. I already actually assembled one of the R100s to make sure this would work. And yeah, we're all good. Trying to give you guys the full unboxing experience here. And then the seat will be completely reclined down like a board. All right, it shall look like this when you get it out of the packaging. So you'll notice I went for leather this time. These ones are cloth, and it's not bad having the cloth, but I do think that these will tear and wear a lot faster than the leather. I also, like the OCD in me, I have pets and I get hair all over this thing and then it flies around in the interior. I know that's like something silly to complain about, but I just prefer having a seat that's leather than I do cloth. And so you can get these in cloth or you can get them in leather, but I just wanted to go for a leather look. And I am putting in the interior in the E36 M3 and it's gonna be all black leather. So this kind of just, it was an obvious choice, it just made sense. So yeah, this is how it's gonna come in the box. And then you'll have these little covers. Believe it or not, I actually ordered these on Amazon. I'll have them linked down below, but they came in like 3 days from when I ordered them. So these are the little adjusters for the side. And then in here are the handles for the adjusters. Now I will say I did my homework when looking up these seats and checking out reviews, and the most common complaint was that these crack. I guess they're just like really cheap plastic from Sparco, but everyone who had complained about them and who had ended up breaking theirs, they were sent out a free set from Sparco, no questions asked. There was also one guy who had this like 3D printed in a more durable plastic, so I guess that is something you could do if you really want to go that route, but just be mindful of it, I guess. Just be careful when you're adjusting it. There's one on each side, and so in my opinion, if you're gonna adjust the seat, grab both of them at the same time and then recline, find your positioning. But yeah, I did want to note that you know, some people were just complaining about the overall cheapness of these little handles, and I do agree, they do feel like cheap. I feel like I could break this really easily, so just be mindful of it. But yeah, so this was the most common complaint about these seats. To put the plastic pieces on, it's very easy. You'll see a clip here on this side. You're gonna wanna put this clip part up on here first, and then the back should just snap in. Just like that. Same thing with this one. So start with the front, line up the back, and it should go right into place. All right, so once you have those two connected, you are able to lift this, put my knee in the way so it doesn't hit me in the nuts. Yeah, so it'll recline just like that. So I know that one of the things that people are gonna ask about is weight with these two seats. So let's go ahead and weigh me, and then weigh me holding the QRT, and then weigh me holding the R100, and let's see what the difference is. Let's see what your boy's weight is nowadays. 193.4. Let's do the QRT first. It is a light seat, man, very light. 209.2, R100. Definitely heavier. 222.2. All right, so that is a pretty significant difference. We're talking about a 13-pound difference from the QRT to the R100. The QRT is a 15.8-pound seat, whereas the R100 is a 28.8-pound seat. Am I personally worried about the weight? No, but again, if you are building a track car or a race car, that might be something to think about. So now I'm gonna show you guys how to actually assemble the seats, the brackets, and the floor mounts. Now, these pieces over here came off of the QRT. You need those in order to run the QRTs, because with the QRTs, you mount the seat on the side of the actual seat itself. Those are the brackets that allow you to do that from the rails and the floor mount. As you can see, I have mine that's already set up over here. Now the seat belt mechanism, the portion of that is actually from an E30. I read about that in the forums, that in order to run the actual seat belt mechanism on the E36s, this is probably one of the easiest ways to do it, because it's just a simple long piece that comes off of the seat belt mechanism and it bolts right up to the actual seat mount itself. Whereas on the E36s, the way that the mechanism was laid out doesn't allow you to bolt it right up to the Sparco seat. But let's go ahead and take this one apart, and then we'll start working on putting that one together. All right, so when you guys buy everything, this is typically how it's going to look when you get it. You just want to remember that the seatbelt portion is going to be on your back right, if it is obviously the driver's side, or of course your back left if it is your passenger side. So this will be the front, where you can see the bar I'm placing up there. The way that you'll be able to tell if the rails are going in the right direction is these levers should be able to pull up, and they should be facing this way. So this is how I know that the rails and the seat mount and everything is set in the right direction. What I like to do first is put the rails onto the seat, onto the back of the seat, and then I go ahead and put the actual floor mount on for the seat brackets. As far as the hardware, I literally just went to Home Depot and found the right thread pitch and the right depth. I believe these are all like 1 inch, and they are 13 millimeters. I've just been using these and they seem to work well. So now let's go ahead and just put these on the seats. It's gonna be really easy. I'm gonna flip this over, have it hang off so nothing gets damaged, and then go ahead and throw everything on. All right, so we have everything on here, and when you get to the actual lever portion, these two sides are gonna go into these silver adjustment levers. See them right there and right there. Right now I have it pretty far bent out. The base of the QRTs was wider than the base of these. So you can see, we try to line it up, it's way too big. So what you have to do is actually bend it, line it up with those two silver parts, and slide it onto those. It's gonna be pretty tough to get on. I recommend just wrapping a rag around the edge and giving it a little nudge with a sledgehammer or a hammer. Perfect. Just like that. So when you pull this up, it will adjust forward and backwards. And then lastly, we'll just go ahead and put our seatbelt portion on. All right, seatbelt portion is on. And you can, of course, move this around, adjust it to wherever you need to be. That's it. That's assembling the entire seat that we need for this application. So now all we have to do is throw it in the car, make sure everything lines up, and go for a ride. All right. We've got the first one in the car, and I'm going to I think that's where I want it. This definitely has to come back a little more. Dude, I love that these are now adjustable. These are gonna look really good, you guys, I think. Also look at my sick tape job, waiting for glue to dry over there. But these look really nice. I think these are gonna work out well. I'm not gonna put the other one in because I still have to put the cage in, back seats, all that stuff. I'd just take it right back out. So no point in doing that. But what we are gonna do is we're gonna go for a ride, and I'm gonna see how these feel. It feels like, in terms of like height and everything, it's the same as the other seat, as the QRT. This seat is definitely much more like rigid and firm, whereas the QRT, that softer material, it has a little bit more padding. What I do notice right away is right underneath your thighs in the QRT, there's a bit of like a hump. There's none of that in this, so it's relatively flat. If you don't like a flat bottom, this isn't gonna be the seat for you. It's just a much more simple design versus that QRT seat, but it feels nice, man. I think the height is really good. It's obviously I can recline now, which is really nice. It's easy to get in and out of, which was a big deal for me. The QRT was just annoying to get in and out of every day. You're like jumping over that side bolster, which is just huge. Yeah, this feels really good. I'm into it, man. For $330, this is a solid setup. There's not like a ton of room for you to move around, so it still grips you pretty good, but I don't feel so constricted. I felt very constricted in the QRT. My shoulders didn't quite fit well in that seat. This seat seems a little bit better for people who are a little bit wider and larger. So if that's you, this is definitely the route to go versus the QRT. And even if you were to get a larger size of the QRT, I'm not sure that that would fit in this car, because the size that I had, which I'm pretty sure was a large, was already hitting the side of the door and everything. Like, you didn't have any more room. But this feels good, man. This feels very solid. It's comfortable enough for me. I don't need the most plush seat in the world. It's a good mix between like what would feel like a stock seat and an aftermarket like racing seat. For $300, like I don't know if this could be a bad decision anywhere around. Like, that's so cheap for a racing seat. First moment that I sat in this seat, it was very awkward and different. I was so used to the QRTs in this car that I was like, whoa, this feels odd. But now that I'm like riding in it a little bit more, it feels a lot better. It feels a lot more natural. I definitely think that this seat is the way to go for the setup that I have right now. It doesn't feel like a $2,000 seat. Like, I'll be honest, it definitely feels like a cheaper end seat. It doesn't feel like it's really high quality leather. It doesn't feel like it would be something that you'd want to sit in for 9 hours, you know? It's not that comfortable. But for a $300 seat, and for the purpose of this car, and I think purpose of like most budget builds, this is a very, very good option for a seat. I think really your biggest downsides are these plastic levers on the side. I think that it just comes down to being careful and like gentle and cognizant of the fact that these are kind of flimsy, so you don't want to break them. Just be careful when you're adjusting the seat. Yeah, man, it feels really good. Like, I have no issues with this seat, man. I think this feels great. Yeah, these are great, man. These are perfect for what I need. Definitely feeling them. It's interesting because in the E36, there's a bit of an angle to the seat. So you'll notice that when you start sitting in aftermarket seats that are a bit more rigid, there's always like a weird angle to the E36 seats. They kind of tend to dip towards the center a little bit and point inwards. I've read about this in the forums and stuff. Some people make up for that by using washers on one side of the seat rail. Yeah, the more that I drive, the more that I get used to it. It feels really good. And you, of course, can still run the harnesses with this seat. It's got cutouts and everything for that. My comprehensive review on these Sparco R100s. I dig them, man. I think they're good. For the amount of money you're spending, I think that these are definitely gonna do the job. This kind of has like a retro like feel and look to it, in my opinion. It almost feels like an old like Recaro that you'd find in like an E30 or something. Like, it's a very simple, basic design. The padding isn't too crazy, but for any sort of like budget build, I think this is plenty of seat for you. I think that you're gonna be just fine in this seat. All right, guys, so hopefully you found some use out of this video comparing the $300 R100s to the $850 QRTs. I think it just comes down to like what kind of car are you looking to build and what your budget is. If I want to down the line, I might spend a little more money and get like an even nicer seat. If I can get my hands on like some Sportster CSs or something like that. But if you guys have a local shop near you that has a bunch of car seats like this, just go sit in them and try them out. That's like the best way to find out what seat is for you. But I've actually got to run. I got to go pick up the 340 from the shop, bring that home, and then I gotta get back to working on the E36. I have the entire interior that I need to put in tonight, roll cage, rear seats, all that stuff, so I have my work cut out for me. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one. Love you. Peace.